Hey guys, Chris the Valley Guy here. I don't have anything I wanted to review or anything to do in a video, but I've been itching to make a Bally video lately, and it's just been a while. I think change is the main thing that I'm going to talk about in this video, and I don't know if I put it in the title or not as of this moment because I haven't decided on the title. But Calvin Nation was something I wanted to talk about and what he meant to me, and other creators. And yeah, so I don't know. This is kind of a thing that I'm sure people that are older than me are gonna be like, it's just a part of life. You're just going through it. It's the way that it is, and obviously that's true. But I mean, change is just something that hits different. You look back 9 years ago, whenever you started doing something really influential in your life, and you ask yourself, you don't even know what to ask yourself sometimes, but I don't know. I ask myself, what would have happened in my life if this had not happened? And for me, and that was flipping ballad songs, and it's not quite 9 years ago. I started flipping the summer going into fourth grade, which was the summer of 2013, which will be 10 years ago this summer. And back then it was because I discovered Team Fortress 2, and I was probably kind of young to be playing Team Fortress 2 from third grade going into fourth grade, because I really started in third grade, but I'm sorry, I got all that wrong. I was going into fifth grade when all this happened, so that'll make 9 years. And I was thinking in my head, there's no way that's right, and it wasn't. So it'll be 9 years that this summer that I've been flipping, and it was in fourth grade that I had started to discover Team Fortress 2. There's just I don't know how I got that wrong. It's just so long ago. It's easy to mess up. And flipping my barfly, by the way. I love my barfly. I don't remember where I set down my firefly, but just starting off with that and doing all that, I started flipping a Lego ballad song, and that was all I had at the time. And I loved Legos, and I was playing with them at the time, so I was like, you know what, I think I'm gonna make a Lego ballad song, because my parents didn't want to buy me even a comb off of Amazon, because, well, it just took a lot of convincing. It was like $5, and they were just like, I don't know what the skepticism was, but they are on the preface of they're never going to give me an actual knife. And that summer of after fifth grade was when I ended up getting my Bradley Chimera, if I remember correctly. And I still have that Bally, and I still flip it occasionally, and I will never get rid of that thing because of everything that knife brought to me. I still wish I had some of the Ballies I had before, but I have all the ones that I'm glad I've kept, like my 51. I don't have my 32, but I do have my Alpha Beast, at least the original handles, spacers, screws. I don't have the latch, I don't have the original blade. I kind of wish I did, but what can you do? It's still the same knife that I've been coming in contact with my hands ever since. And over those years, in 2015 December, I would start my YouTube channel. Chris, it was my name at the time. I don't remember what the name reiterations were, but I think TTK was one of the early names, and I liked the name because I had learned about the Chris style blade, and I liked how it was similar to my name, especially in pronunciation. And I liked the shape a lot, and I liked the functionality of it, how it would dig into things whenever you used it. And I knew, I can't remember what, it was this dude that had a bunch of Ballies, in his collection. I forget his name. He always had a bunch of Matt Cook custom Bally's and stuff, but I can't remember. And a bunch of Benchmade Bally's, and that was just his main hobby, I guess. But he ended up being the information to me that there can be such thing as a titanium blade coated in carbon. So through that, I ended up creating the name the Titanium Chris, and that was my first real name on YouTube. And I had a picture of me holding my Bradley Chimera like this, holding the bite handle, and that was how it started for me. I used to have a banner of the really old desk I had, and I had all my like 7 or 8 knives, my Chimera being the only butterfly besides like my BB Barfly in blue that I used to have a long time ago. That's one of the ones I wish I still had. That BB Barfly meant a lot to me, and I ended up making a few custom ones, and even when I sent them to the company, pictures wise, I thought it was interesting. Makes me wonder if I inspired them to do the designs that they did. But as time went on, back in when I early started that channel, my first videos were Benchmade versus fake Benchmade, or like Benchmade versus clones, and then what Balisong to buy. And those videos are the most viewed videos that my channel ever got before my channel was offed. And those videos, anytime that I was like, I wasn't too happy about myself in life, I would always go back to those videos, listen to how young, ignorant, and silly I was, and how unconfident I was making videos, but yet still how successful I was to at least entertain people and inform them on at least some things. Someone told me in the comments to do a chaplain on the bite handle, or the chaplain with the bite handle, because I called the 51 a grail to me, which grail is subjective in my opinion still. I mean, it can be one thing. Hard to acquire is also debatable, because I was like literally in 5th grade at the time. No, I was in 6th grade when I made that video. And people were like, oh, go chaplain on the bite handle. That's not what grail means, you DS. And I remember being like kind of hurt by that. I was like, darn, these people suck. But looking back onto those videos before they were deleted, I had like 140,000 views between both of them. And my early videos didn't do great with likes and dislikes, and my videos weren't the most entertaining and they weren't the most informative, but I was having fun, and some people that watched those videos liked those videos, and some of those people that watched those videos watched me until my channel got deleted. So it's just fascinating that people would want to watch a literal 6th grader, and I'm sure a lot of those people were my age, but I've even had people DM me on Instagram and comment on my videos before that were like significantly older than me, like people that were like in their 20s. And my demographic on YouTube, I remember before it got deleted in September of 2022, rest in peace, was like 65% 12 to 18, and then the rest of, and like 90% of the rest of that was to age like 25, and then a little less was even older than that. But the fact that people older like that in margin to where it's even notable on a graph, considering how many views I got, which isn't a lot, but when you're comparing 1,000 to 1, it isn't even 1% whenever 2 people watch that are in a certain age demographic. Also, just the spread of how far people watch my videos on. Like, there were people from the UK. I had conversations with people from the UK. I almost did collaborations. There are people from Australia, people from Africa, people from Canada, even a few people from Mexico. It's just, it's really, really just a different understanding to realize that literally the entire world, to an extent, had some effect on you. Like back in the day, your actions didn't go across the world in any way and had zero potential to do so, because there was no medium to do that unless you were quite literally the most famous person alive, and you heard about it through word of mouth and it spread over that far. But these days you can do very little to get out there, and it's just weird to think that my videos I made in 6th grade and in my middle school days were influential to people literally across the world, and I don't take that for granted. Calvin Nation was a YouTuber I watched a lot of, and then Knifezoid, Knifeiac was another one, Bite Handle, that's a really, it's just, I can't believe that he's gone. I watched his videos so religiously when I was learning how to flip the balisong with my Lego balisong in hand. And it's just crazy that he's gone. I don't know how else to say that. Like, when I learned that Bite Handle was gone, it was just such a low blow. It was such a punch to me, because I don't even know how many hours I watched Bite Handle. It was a lot. I'm trying to think of a real world, like, I don't know what, definitely bad wording there. Not real world equivalent. A better example that applies to more people and is more relatable across a larger spectrum is what I meant to say. It would be almost as if like when Mr. Roger went, but to my world. And it's, I don't know, it just sucks. The world changes. I don't know how to say it like that. The world changes. And it sucks. And I know this is the point where I'm like, people that are older than me are going to be like, that's completely expected of life, and it's good to know that you're learning these lessons. And I know that just because I've seen it for so long. I mean, I'm 19. I mean, I can't be too surprised that people are going to be like that. That's just to be expected. I will be 20 in May though. But yeah, Calvin Nation and Knifezoid. What was his name? Nardath. I watched a little of him. There were some flipping compilations I watched by Knifezoid, or that were posted by Knifezoid. I don't remember if they were edited by him. But, I mean, going back to Calvin Nation's channel, let me see when the earliest video I started watching was. So I remember the Which Balisong to Buy 2013 edition video and the Alpha Beast review. Whenever I started flipping and watching videos in the balisong community, I knew those videos, like, they already existed, but they were a matter of only months old, which is absolutely crazy to think, because those videos are quite literally 9 years old. Like, so much happens in that time period, and it feels like yesterday when I used to watch that video on repeat, because it was just so cool to see so many balisongs in one frame all at once. And I feel like that's why collection videos and what to buy videos were so good on YouTube, because so many people just like seeing so many balisongs on one place, all next to each other. You can see how they compare. It's just interesting. And it makes me wonder, like, what would I have been doing, like, throughout the years if I hadn't been learning about balisongs and all that. And what's crazy to think is that, like, it doesn't feel like I've been flipping that long. Like, it still feels like I just started flipping. Like, oh, I haven't been flipping even 6 months. And I was learning all this information all at once. And I would ask for a bunch of cheap CCCs for Christmas, because it was cool to have so much variety, even though they weren't very good quality. And they didn't last a super long time. I made them last as good as I can. I would beat some and then let the others last. You can't even buy half the CCCs I bought whenever I bought them anymore. because they violate too many patents, or Amazon just doesn't sell them anymore from what I've seen. I mean, you can still buy some, of course, and some of them will always be sold, but like the channel 42s that you could buy on Amazon, that 42 clones that had the real looking blade that wasn't sharpened, I can't remember the last time that was even available on Amazon. And I bought like multiple of those, and those are just so cool. I forget his name. It was a YouTuber that was really edgy or whatever, and did ballad songs, and he constantly raved about the 42s, clones and all that, and he was big into clones, and he eventually got into the Max Ace knives and stuff, but everyone thought he was a bit phallic, put it lightly, and his channels just kept getting deleted, and he had videos on anodizing with 9-volt batteries and stuff, and that's what led me to get those valleys. But and then Cutlery Lover. I used to watch Cutlery Lover's quality versus craft comparison between a CCC and a 42 with that potato camera quality on repeat, dude. It was just there's a certain level of like nostalgia that comes to anything, obviously. I mean, there's a level of nostalgia to what you did a couple years ago, but there's a different level of nostalgia that comes to things that you did literally like half of your life ago. And for me, I'm not even 20, and back 9 years ago, that's basically half my life. Like, I was quite literally 10 back then watching these videos, and it was just really, really influential. It changed so much in my life. I didn't expect this video to get this long, but it's not stopping anytime soon, so we're at 17 minutes and 8 seconds. But I would eventually get into music, and I'm glad that I did, because music is what I'm doing with my life. You can see a bunch of brass instruments sitting behind me in my repair shop and in the band building of Louisiana Monroe College band building, Sound Today band building. Probably not the wisest idea to just put where my exact location is, but no one's gonna come get me, because my former medium isn't shoved in people's faces. It's a public building. It's a building that is accessible to the public upon visitation. It's just not a private residence, so it's not a big deal to me. And I don't keep my valleys here, so y'all have no reason to come rob this place. But besides this, but yeah, I don't keep my actual knives in here because you can't have weapons on school property and all that crap. But back to the discussion of the video. I would later on go to post more videos, and I would notice I was getting like decent traction on these videos, like especially reviews on knives or valleys that were like important to the community at the time, like the Squid Industries Triton, not the Trident, but the Triton. And I remember getting my dad to sit at the computer with me at the exact time that it had to be ordered, and getting him to order it, and we literally, like less than a minute later, the whole stock was gone, and that was just crazy. And that was after I'd gone to Blade Show. Blade Show was a whole different experience to me. Who was it that I flipped with? I know him so well. It was Faulty Plot. I got to flip with Faulty Plot, and I had just gotten done watching his videos, like his video on the Tachyon 3 in titanium, and I'd watched that video so many times, so much so that I ended up getting the Tachyon 3 in aluminum, and I eventually got scammed and I lost that. That sucked, but it was beyond cool to be able to flip knives and like, I forget his name. Oh my gosh. Uh, all the names are so close, but yet so far because it's been so long. I forget his name. I still chat with him on occasion. I got to see his 42 and it had his YouTube name engraved on it. And it was because I was just talking to people at Blade Show outside at the event back in 2017. And I got a chance to, oh man, I just remembered something really sad. But I eventually got to go around and talk to just Bally people because I was around just like a kid in a candy shop at Blade Show. It was so cool. And I just walked up to someone and they were flipping a 42. I was like, hey, is that a 42? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, can I see that? And they let me see it. And I was like, this says such and such on it. And they were like, yeah, that's me. And I was like, just flabbergasted. It was so cool. And then besides that, there was the Blade Show shirts. Sorry, the knife competition shirts. What makes me really sad is I think I don't have that anymore because I was dealing with a bunch of clothing and I had a bunch of clothes in a trash bag, smartly, because I wanted to put them away somewhere but not have them take up a huge amount of space. Clothes I wanted to keep, but clothes I didn't want to wear because I wanted them to last longer. And we were in the middle of moving and I think I just happened to lose all of those clothes because even though I put them in a place and like labeled them to not be thrown away, it's just, I think that they were discarded and that sucks. I mean, that sucks on a whole nother level because there was other important clothing to me that I didn't want to wear because it meant a lot to me. Because of the symbolism and the opportunities I had gotten while wearing those. And then there's just that shirt that was in there that's gone because I kept really good care of that shirt. I had one little gash in the shirt because I dropped my Alpha Beast on it and it pricked me in the stomach and went through the shirt and I was fine. It wasn't a bad cut or anything, but I was like, darn, I messed this shirt up. And then I realized, you know what, that's kind of fitting for a Bally shirt, for it to get kind of torn up by a Bally. I gotta wipe this off. Get oil on my fingers. But yeah, my covers never really did that well on my channels, and I've always expressed that I have a very important place in my life where Undertale was important to me, and that's been a part of my channel as well. I never played the game on my channel or anything. I've never even completed the entire game. I just know the story and I've watched people play it. And I mean, being that it influenced me at such a young age, I mean, it taught me some values that I still carry with me. And just important life values that make you think about situations that you encounter every day when you think back on it. It's like, did I really do this? And did I handle this in a good way? And am I doing the right thing here? And not everyone got that level of appreciation out of the game, and that's to be expected. That's just how life is. Some people appreciate things in a different level. But the music was a whole nother thing to me. It was like a beautifully written, it was like a beautifully written story, or a beautifully written book, I mean. And then an entire catalog of wonderful tracks that were just combined together, and it just fit so well. And when Deltarune came out when I was in my freshman year of high school back in 2018, it blew my mind. And it was like, and then when Chapter 2 came out, it was game over for me. I mean, I don't mean that in a negative way. Like, it was good. Like, it's just crazy how influential something can be, and it's literally ones and zeros on a hard drive somewhere or on an SSD. And the same way that books are just words on a paper and how they can be interpreted certain ways. And obviously this is very meta, this is very 14 and this is deep kind of moment, but I mean, at the time, I was quite literally 14, and it was very deep to me. And I don't mean to say this in like I was different for my age or anything, but I mean, given the way that I stood, and I'm obviously still maturing as an individual. I mean, I've always been a deep thinker when it comes to things in general. I mean, early on in my life, I mean, around when I started flipping ballad songs, or shortly before it actually, I lost my grandfather, Chris Dugas, which is who I was named after, being the name that I have is Christopher Dugas, Christopher Bernard Dugas. And when he left this world, it left me in shambles because this was someone that I hadn't gotten to get to meet yet. And this is someone, like, I had like actually met them, but this was someone that would have been so resourceful to me, in the electrical world and the woodworking world, and was just a person that you would have wanted to meet, a character. And the fact that that opportunity was taken away from me so young, obviously I was upset whenever I found out that he was gone, because I miss going over there, and that was back in 2012, and that was just like, it quite literally at the time had me thinking suicidal thoughts. Like, I wanted to jump out the window of my second story fourth grade classroom. And I remember just going in the bathroom and pleading with God to literally do anything to just have him back, because I hadn't experienced anything like that. And the fact that I had lost someone so important, obviously there are worse people to lose, but I mean, I lost someone of such importance to me, because every time, not to mention he lived an hour away. I lived in Baton Rouge and he lived in Donaldsonville. If you know, you know. But every time I'd go out there, it was always because I was going to go do something really fun, like see my family for Thanksgiving or Christmas, or I'd get to go like see something cool or new, or I'd get to go like shoot toy rockets in the airs, or do my RC cars or stuff. And not only him being lost, but his house being sold as well, especially with how like influential the design was. It was just a really old house with a really old design that really, it was like a late 80s, late 90s-ish kind of build and interior, and it makes me think back to memories with them every time that I see pictures of a house that has an older appearance to it like that. And if you're my age, you probably see those liminal memes where it's like images that are slightly unsettling and disturbing. And maybe that's like that because I remember the way the world looked to me, because I spent my like infancy to fourth grade there with him on occasions, and it was just something memorable. I think I'm going to title this video Change as a Whole. And his cause of death was apparently an issue with his heart, where I initially thought was explained that it was something to do with the fact that his heart lost like its diaphragm for the lungs, like pressure, but like what holds it and pumps it and all that, like it lost pressure and his blood pressure dropped. But it was actually something to do with the valving in his heart, and the tissue broke and it started to short circuit itself, and he thankfully apparently died a very gradual but painless death within sleep. And obviously that's the best way to go out for anyone, but unless you feel otherwise about yourself individually. But this event led to a awakening of clinical depression that would go on until my sophomore year of high school, when I would eventually realize that the workload was just too hard for me. I just couldn't handle private Catholic school anymore, and or not anymore, but the workload was just too hard. And my parents, I don't blame them for this because I was a very dramatic child, but they just did not. I can blame them to an extent, but not entirely. But they did not take my self-threats seriously. Like, they did not actually think when I wrote to them and very specifically said that I wanted to die. That, and with many details surrounding that, and my reaffirmation of that very specific want. They didn't take me seriously, and they pushed it off. And my method around getting around that a year or two later was to just go to the counselor, tell them that I can't do this anymore and that I have suicidal thoughts and want to die, and have them force them to deal with it, because that was just all I could deal with, all I could do. While I am spewing information about my life right now, I am going to exclude some details, and that's just for the better. But that eventually got fixed very slowly and painfully through the efforts of a mental hospital, and it was terrible. I thought I was having a great time. This is one of those conspiracy moments or thoughts, but that place just had a very specific smell. And the people who were working there usually wore masks most of the time, and it almost makes me think that I don't know if I actually believe this or not, but it would almost make sense if they had something in the air to literally like disarm people, because people were mostly mellow there except for the few like outbreaks. But it made me feel better just being there in a way that I know I shouldn't have been, and it just, looking back, it just makes me really uncomfortable. And then they ended up labeling my medicine that they were trying to administer to me to figure out what was going to be best for me, and they gave me the wrong medicine from someone else with a very similar name, and they refused to believe that, because the medicine that they had given me had a completely different appearance. And when I asked them about it, they said, "Oh, this medicine doesn't come like that." And when I told them that what the medicine was exactly looked like, and I don't have a photographic memory by any means, but I journaled every minute of that place every single day, and because that was one of the things that they would let you do. And they just were like, "Oh no, you just must have not remembered correctly." And that was very deterring. So I ended up on medicine that ended up giving me panic attacks and causing me to have actual like health problems in school, causing me to miss even more. And I mean, it's just, when you go missing for 2 months for once, that is just a complete experience for everyone around you, especially whenever you're in session with whatever you're doing with other people. For me, that was just school and marching band. I just disappeared one day, and these people had no idea why I wasn't there. All the teachers knew, that they couldn't even tell the students, was that I'm out for medical reasons, and people tried contacting me. I remember now, I had 112 notifications total on just my text messages whenever I got my phone back. And that was horrifying, to think that people really care that much about me, and that I hold that much significance to people, because that makes me worry that if I was to go tomorrow, for whatever reason, it would leave people distressed and distraught. And I didn't even think about that for YouTube. I know that people would be affected, but not nearly as much. I had like 3K at most back then. I know it would be different now than if I did it later, and it just, all that has different weights and different values compared to if it was this, if it was that, if it was when, if it was now, if it was later. But you know what I'm saying. I eventually ended up moving high school and being completely detached physically from all those people that I had known, and moving to a completely different city because of a completely unrelated issue that had to do with family. I'm not gonna expose details for privacy reasons, but it was kind of unfair. And we ended up moving out to Walker to go to Walker High School, And that's where I went to high school for my junior and senior year. For one, I feel like that made my years go by even faster for in high school, and all the way through high school, I never for a second told myself, this is really slow, and I wish that I didn't actually have the full length of time to complete high school. I knew for a fact going in that I was not going to want it to end when it was going to end, so I needed to make use of every second possible. And that's how I am in college as well. I mean, I extended my plan from 4 to 5 years for different reasons, just because of the number of classes I'm expected to take on the daily as a music education major, which is literally a double major, but you pay for a single major, and you only get a single major's labeled number of credit hours despite taking double that in actual day. But despite that, I met people, I dated people. Some were negative experiences, some were positive. I don't regret any of those decisions. They're what mature me as an individual. And whether something was painful or whether it was fun or whatever turn that it took at whatever point in time, it all made an influential effect on my life and how I view things. I ended up working downtown in New Orleans repairing instruments because I had gotten 2 tubas and a euphonium from a seller called Culture Warehouse on eBay, and I still work with them. The guys behind it is the main guy in my opinion. His name is Hudson. He does a lot in the world of sales, and then there's, I forget his name, but he lives in Florida, I think, or Georgia, and he's also behind it. But if you ever want a good vintage instrument, you can always contact them on their eBay. It's Culture Warehouse. If you send them a message and be like, hey, do you happen to have this, even though it's not listed, like a cornet or a trumpet or something, they will happily be sure to let you know, because they don't list everything they have, which I think is kind of dumb. But anyways, I ended up meeting those people, excuse me, by the way, and it was good. I made some money while I was down there. I ended up working mostly for instruments because all I wanted was more instruments, and I eventually ended up making, this is my second prototype, but I ended up making an 8-valve tuba. Ignore the broken rubber band because that's the spring to this valve right here. Oh, they all have springs. Oh, it was the spring to this valve. I had extra rubber bands to help with the valve move. It looked different than this, but I had an 8-valve tuba that was based off this one that I built. And that was early in my senior year, if I remember correctly, that I did that. And that's one of those things I wish I could go back and never have changed, because I ended up converting that tuba to C. But that did get me an audition. It won me an audition here at the University of Louisiana Monroe and got me the scholarships that I did. So, not that it was an extraordinarily good C tuba, it was actually pretty bad, but anyways, it was something that I did that was for the better. And then, near the end of high school, it was, I don't know, I kind of saw life start to separate, and I just was like, you know, it's crazy that this is such a fun moment in life, and it's so easy compared to my private Catholic education that was absolutely kicking my butt, but it's just crazy And I watched it all slowly just go away, and it's all gone now. Man, I miss being in high school. I miss both the high schools I was in, and it all just feels like a distant memory at this point. Obviously, that's to be expected, but. And then I got to here, where I am now. And even the beginning of this feels like a while ago. And it's just been a semester. I'm surprised I didn't drop out or fail, to be honest, but because it's hard. But I started off, I didn't know anyone. Obviously, that's what you expect whenever you get to college. There were 2 people that I knew from my high school that went here. And I still talk to those people pretty much every day. Still good friends with them, which is good. And then I got this repair room as a condition of coming here, and I'm very glad I had it. And I remember one of the first days during band camp, because we had to come here early for band camp and all that, if you know you're in band. Who would later be my president of Kappa Kappa Psi, which is a band fraternity, really old one, would eventually see me blow torching a piece of metal in here while soldering it, and he would go tell my professor. He would be like, "Who is that?" And he'd be like, "Oh, that's Chris." And it's funny because he was Chris too, and he was just like so flabbergasted, like, who the heck is torching? What is this freshman? He's a senior, and he just sees this freshman blow torching a piece of metal in this repair room that no one's used for the past literal 30 years or so, besides just messing around and not actually doing anything functional. It's been a storage room. I basically renovated the place whenever I got here. Not really, I just organized it and got permission to throw some stuff away that didn't need to be here, and then I put all my stuff in here, and it's nice. I got some speakers, I got a nice bright light, I do all my schoolwork in here, but I definitely don't sleep in here because that violates the certain terms of service that are agreed upon whenever going to the school. You cannot sleep in educational buildings. Yeah, even if I did sleep in here, it wouldn't even be for that long, but regardless. I ended up going through the process of joining this band fraternity, Kappa Kappa Psi, because my band director was in it whenever he was in school, and the whole premise behind it was doing things that benefit the band and then just forming good bonds between people. And that process changed me quite a bit because I went through a lot to get through that. And one of the things that I went through was that our director of bands and director of visual performing arts passed away on October 10th, 2022. And I was in his class one morning, wind ensemble, and we were waiting, and he just wasn't showing up. This is one of those old buggers that would just never show up late to anything unless they just absolutely could not, for a very specific and understandable reason. And we eventually, after about 10 minutes of waiting, found out that after the game Friday, he had during the game he had pneumonia, and then later on Sunday night he ended up having a heart attack. And I'm sorry, it was the 9th, but the 10th was when it really impacted the most people. And it was just, I didn't know this man for very long, but this was the person that was behind every scholarship that I got, which isn't a few, and me being able to use this room. and to the extent that I use it. I knew this man very little personally, but I knew very, very well that his actions were why I was here right now. Obviously, I had a play in where I was going to end up based on what I decided to do with my life and how I decided to help others and be good at repairing instruments and all that. But he's the reason that it was possible in those circumstances. Any other person would have probably said no. That day, class was just canceled. I emailed the rest of my professors. They were understanding. I told them, I'm not going to be in class today. I'm dealing with the loss of our director, my professor. And they were completely understanding of that. Not that attending class would have made a difference anyways. Being a music major, you really have to show up to all your classes to pass, even your core classes. But we went to lunch that day and had some really good talk about the changes that he had made when he was around and all that. It was just a great, big, emotional feast. It was some random kind of Mexican restaurant for some reason we had all chosen. I rode there with my director in his car, I think, and I don't know. I cried a lot for that man because back to my grandfather, I saw a lot in Dr. Long that I saw in my grandfather, and it was like happening all over again. It was almost as if I had been given a second chance to relearn and come to know with my grandfather figure almost. And it was taken away from me at the same equivalent stage as I was in the past. It felt like I knew him about as long as I knew my own grandfather, and it just was gone. And I was in the process of Kappa Kappa Psi, of getting into it, and I hadn't gotten his interview, and I was supposed to. And he was someone that was in Psi a long time ago. And I was supposed to learn a lot from him. I was supposed to have a lot of personal conversations with him, and I was supposed to get to know him on a very personal level, but I failed to do that. And obviously you can only do what you're expected to do, and you can only react to what you're expected to react to in the best way that you personally can. But there's just a certain level of guilt that comes from things that you don't expect happening, that you didn't react to, and there's only so much you can even do about that. And I'm gonna work on a tribute to that man because he deserves so much more than just that. I played at his memorial concert, and before that I went to his funeral. I had to pull a lot of strings to even get out of the events that I was signed up for through those scholarships to even go to that, but it meant so much to me that I just couldn't not go. I knew that I was going to be completely destroyed in the long run if I hadn't gone to that man's funeral. And I'm so glad that I did, because it gave me a chance to let go and really move on. And with that, that was our late director of bands, Dr. Long. And it still makes me wonder how it would have been right now if he was not here, because the entire music program half darn near fell apart whenever he left, because he did so much. And a memory that I will always remember about that man, for one, he made sure that there was always something Cajun in Louisiana at those football games for us to eat before the game. But even more so, being inside, I was obligated to go help out before everyone was to get down there, and it was to set up for the game and the practice beforehand. And he left his coffee on the tail of his truck, and I grabbed it for him so it wouldn't fall off, because he was driving on some bumpy field on our practice field trying to move his truck over, and it would have certainly fell off. So I just grabbed it and I walked it over with his truck, handed it back to him, and he said this after I said this. I was like, "Hey, Dr. Long, I grabbed your coffee off your truck. It was gonna fall off." And he was like, "Thank you, Chris. This is why I like you." And that was just one of those moments that, I don't know, I wouldn't have died without it, but now that I got it, especially knowing the circumstances now, I would just not, it just adds to the way that I feel about that man to an extent. Obviously, it's not something hugely significant that he said that, but it was one of my best moments with him, given that I only talked to him for probably about an hour's worth of time total. And yeah. And what's crazy is that early September, I would, wait a second, what day was it actually exactly? I need to see, because exactly a month before Dr. Long passed away, my channel went. And that's a really weird coincidence. I don't know why that is. But my channel went, and all of the people that watch my channel, how many subs did I have? Was it? Can't really see. It was a lot. I should have just taken the second strike instead of fighting the claim, because I didn't really think about it. YouTube shouldn't have been stupid and looked at my videos as some child endangerment, but they did. So yeah, that point in my life was kind of rough, because two very unexpected events happened exactly a month apart from each other. Obviously the second one being much, much worse. I would rather every channel I ever make get deleted than lose Dr. Long, of course. But he was like 64. But in the same manner that I lost my grandfather, you don't really get to control that. My grandfather was 68. And it doesn't matter how hard you try, you're going to lose the things that you work hard for. You're going to lose the things you love. And you're going to lose other things as well. And that's just a matter of life. Thankfully, one thing I didn't lose was my support, especially from John Bedek and every other person that watches my videos, regardless of what channel they're under, or regardless of whether they're on the channel that I've always posted them from. Whether it's me now, whether it's me in the past, whether it's my music videos, whether it's my ballet videos, whether it's this video, or something completely different. It's those people that I appreciate the most, those 100 or so people that love my content, that I appreciate the most. And there just isn't anything that I can say that says how much I appreciate every listening second that one of y'all gives to me. You know, silence is sometimes the loudest voice in the room, and sometimes it's the voice that says the most. And I don't really know what else to add to this video, because I kind of just went across talking I just started talking in hopes of getting a word out, and I'm glad that I did. And something else came to my mind. I ended up getting a new tuba, and usually it's like, oh, nice, you got a new tuba, whatever, I don't like it. And that's to be expected. But I had my eyes on this tuba for a long time, especially for its value. It was from the Las Vegas Philharmonic Orchestra, and I got it at such an absurdly cheap price for very specific circumstances. And someone ended up donating to me. His name was Charles Stamper Freeman. He ended up donating the remaining money that I needed to get the tuba, and I almost lost it because I almost didn't get it fast enough because someone would, given the trends on eBay, given for how good of a deal it was, someone would have absolutely bought it in a very short period of time after I actually bought it, if I hadn't bought it at the time that I did, which would have been unfortunate for me by a long shot because I got this for like 1/3 the price. And for very specific reasons, I named the tuba in honor of Dr. Long Darrell, his first name. I name all my instruments. That one back there is all reliable. I've converted it to multiple different keys and different configurations, and it's always able to make a note that carries through the ensemble, and it always sounds alright. It's reliable. Maybe not the best, but reliable. And this tuba, I named Darrell, because if you knew Darrell, he was a bigger man. He loved some Louisiana food, and that's part of why I named it after him. But something else I think that matches him well is that no matter where Darrell was in the room, you could always hear him and you could always feel what he said. Not necessarily that his voice was extremely bassy or anything, but he had a very influential and very powerful force behind what he said. When he said something, if you didn't listen to it, you were the problem. Because that man never spoke without truth behind what he said or without severe apologies following it. Because he was just one of those people that you just respected. If you didn't respect Dr. Long, you were disrespecting yourself. And in honor of him, I named this instrument after him because it was big and it had a very stern voice behind it that you heard where you were. Anyways, I'm gonna let it roll out into exactly an hour because I'm a little OCD and I wanted to hit exactly an hour. But that's basically it as far as the video is concerned. I'm sorry I don't post much Bally content these days. It's kind of hard to keep up. Back to what I was saying about Calvin Nation, I'll try not to ever be like Calvin Nation and completely leave behind YouTube and the Art of the Ballad song almost and just go off doing something else. I'll obviously be posting more music stuff, especially that Dr. Long tribute, but I always want to remember why I'm here right now, and I always want to respect the thing that is why I'm here right now. And the thing that's in my hand right now, not the one specifically, but the general object that is in my hand right now that I'm performing a martial art with and flipping around, is the reason that I am sitting in front of a camera right now and talking to potentially a few hundred people, hopefully more. And it's the reason why those people appreciate the content that I've made and appreciate me as an individual and reminisce on old videos that were no longer in existence because of a very faulty system that was very different back then. YouTube back in 2015 and 2016 was just a different beast. And I wish I could go back, but you have to live life in the present. I'm just gonna say Thanks for watching, and goodbye.